Hey guys, welcome to part 2. It's kind of like a story time, but I'm just trying to explain like what I've experienced in my past and how it was hurting me and how it was hindering me as well. So the first version of this is more about like alcohol. A little bit like I smoked cigarettes when I was in high school and up to the point of I got pregnant with my first son. And so what I wanted to do is just talk a little bit on like how that affected me and like I guess how I'm moving out of those substances, because I'm still dealing with some sort of like, I don't know if people would calculate or regulate this as like substance abuse, but like I still have, I'm trying to manage my screen time and I'm still trying to fix like my addiction to sugars and food items, right? Like refined carbs, like croissants, like just eating stuff that makes me bloat when I don't want to be bloated. And so what I associate when I was smoking, I was living in my home. I was getting to the point where I believe this is just my interpretation of things, but like as I started smoking when I was in high school, so I would say I think it was in grade 10. And I definitely feel like at this point I was really getting a clearer picture of who my father was and who he was not. And I think when I was younger, I made a lot of excuses. And you don't want to believe like your parents are bad. I do think kids make a lot of excuses for their parents, and we also don't as children understand a lot of what is happening at that point. I don't think so. Like I think we do and we don't, if that makes sense. It's like there's a lot of coping things for survival, and I think it's interesting because you'll see things on TV and you'll recognize like that's not my family. And I don't know, even remembering like my friends' dads and stuff like that. To be honest, like when I look at a lot of their dads too, they're kind of shitty dads too. I just don't remember thinking like, I don't remember. I remember there's a Christian family we visited. I think they were called the Smiths, and that dad seemed nice, and those kids were always very friendly. And actually, that's not true. There's another dad I met when I lived on Wetter with the kids, and he seemed really involved with his kids, and I feel like he seemed like a really nice husband for us. I never got to talk to his wife that much though, because I think her work schedule and stuff, and he was always out with the kids and she was not so much. So I don't know. I don't know him in totality, right? And that's a problem, is like it's hard to say, like I'm trying to think, but I'm also on the spot. But I just can't really remember and speak on a man that I know to be true to the core is a good human, because a lot of these men that I met were really good on the outside, but when it came down to it, like a lot of the men that I dated, like I talked to them about the porn issue and how I don't like that and how I'm uncomfortable with it. And I remember when I was younger, I tried to partake in it to go along to get along. Like I thought that was what that would make them more attracted to me, and I also feel like I was probably doing that just to like, I felt like I wasn't getting the treatment. I feel like if we trust our subconscious a lot, I think it tells us a lot of things in a way that I think we know something's wrong. I do think there's like something off here, and just because that practice of watching sexual videos is normalized does not make it healthy, moral, or to a higher level of values. And just because a whole bunch of people do it doesn't make it right. And just because tons of people are eating junk food right now doesn't make them like okay. Or it's just once in a while. Well, what is your once in a while, right? It's things that are in moderation. Now for me, I'm never going to think that's okay, because I have a belief system where if you're right with the right person, I don't think you require those things. And I think when you understand like the people involved in those videos and what they went through as a child, and then again in their life, and then you're willing to exploit that and partake in that. Like I remember come across the stats, like 98, don't quote me, but 98% of the people involved in those sexual videos like have been sexually abused as a child. And so now they're as an adult, and you want to like feed off that, and people don't want to look at it like that. They're like, well, they're participating, they're this and that. Well, people pleasing and being raised like I also believe there's the reasons why it was so hard for me to move away from toxic people, which that is an addiction. Getting attention is an addiction. It's one of the biggest ones, I feel. And that was really challenging because I was raised by the predator. And so I had to learn certain things in order to stay safe, because I couldn't show up in my full version, because that would not have allowed me to get the things that I need, right? And so a lot of people misunderstand like why people do things, and I'm like, I'll see people like, okay, there's a lot going on there, I can understand why you're doing it, and I can't be close to that because they're not aware of why they're doing what they're doing. And so just as when you're younger you think you know everything, and you don't. And I feel like there are some adults that have stretched that phase out of like into like their 50s, where they think I know everything, and they're still very teenage-like in their rebellion years, but they actually haven't learned anything different. They're just maybe doing different. Maybe they've achieved levels in work, but in reality, their coping mechanisms are still like abusive to those around them and to themselves, right? And so, for the first thing, for cigarette smoking, I definitely associate that with being smothered. In the way that I was never allowed to speak what I want to say, uh, we were always had to tiptoe, like we were walking on eggshells in that environment. As a teenager, I did start speaking out more, but honestly, if I were to like, it's only through the healing that I've chosen to do later on in life now, where I've been able to also like speak out on what I needed at the time. So like at the time when I was a teenager, my dad was miserable. It was really hard to have people over because he just didn't hide his misery, And then if we brought our friends into the house, it's almost like it was just like more attention for him, to like feel someone to feel sorry for him, or for him to talk to and embarrass us. Like, we're just like, Dad, it's our friend, just like let it go, right? Like, it wasn't ever. I just don't remember him being that involved father. And it's not because I don't, like, the memories are there and I don't remember them. It's because there's no memory. It's like, it was very based on him and his needs. And I think, I'm sure he had the idea of like what he wanted for a family, but honestly, it just feels very superficial, and like there's a lack of connection. And even when I've tried to communicate this to him later in my life, there's never been like a, you know what, I think I messed up and I would like to hear how. There's never been that. There's never been that acknowledgement that where it's almost like I did the best I could with what I had. Okay, but you still fucked up. And you still got to acknowledge that, because I do too, because I did the same thing, just differently and for different reasons. And so when that never comes, it's kind of like, but like even as a teenager, we start talking more and talking back. But I do think that suffocation is a lack of speaking, like on your, I think it's on true feelings, like telling your parents you hate them. Like I'm sure I feel like I probably did that, but it's just like, I think it's maybe also like, I'm just going based on my experiences. Like, I know recently I was in a therapy session within the last year, and unfortunately I didn't click with this therapist because I didn't think she understood where I was coming from, and then she just wanted to try to push her belief systems onto me, and I didn't find them helpful. I found them dismissive and not helping for my healing. And so it was what I brought to that session, and I was willing to speak on. And what came out in one of those sessions was, I need my mom. And recently the same thing came up for me, is like, I need my dad. And not in the version that they showed up though, like somebody who knows how to, and like, now it's like gone on for so long, it would be awkward and weird to, it's almost like so much damage has been done for a long period of time. It's almost like there's an expiry, I feel, an expiry date on like somebody who has hurt you, and when they come back, because it's almost gets to a point where like, what took you so long? Because like, it wasn't a lack of knowledge. I told you exactly what you're doing. So like, it took you that long to understand that you could have hurt somebody else, and that you're not a perfect godly person. Like, that's what took you so long to understand it. So it's a little bit conflicting for me. But so at that time, I also like was smoking around the kid's father. And so like, even though he was like to a T like my dad, except he took off and abandoned the family. But like, there was a certain level of requirements of us abandoning ourselves while my father was in the family home. So like, we couldn't stand up for, like, the kid's dad took off because I started advocating for me and my kids. That's why he took off. We would fight and stuff, and we would get back and forth together, kind of thing. But like, eventually, like, it was just to the point where I was no longer willing to close my mouth and not speak on things. And I finally got to the point, kind of like other people in my life, where I realized this man is never going to change, and this is not safe. this isn't even close to sick. I had so much guilt from leaving my kids with him when we had a joint custody. Like, it wasn't very much time, but it was enough time where I'm like, my kids, like, the way he treated them, he did not provide them with the bare necessities of life, like a bed, you know, with proper nutritional, like, he spent more money on cigarettes and alcohol than he would on feeding his own kids. And his parents would give him, you know, money and help him with buy furniture for his home, but never once did they ever offer me a gas card, a grocery card. You know, it was very rare that they would ask to take the kids. It was, and when it happened, it's like it was very little, and it wasn't really a rest period. And her being a single mom herself, you would think she would have some understanding if she did this by herself the proper way, what you would need as a single mom. And the fact that she totally didn't put herself in my shoes is weird. Her being a single mom, and not being able to understand, like, her son is exactly like his father. And so I've done another video about the PTSD and how to treat children in these sort of environments, so you can check that out. So yeah, so I definitely feel like when I was smoking cigarettes, like, it was hard for me to breathe because I was so suffocated. And suffocated mean my throat, in the way that I wasn't able to speak what I really wanted to say. And it took me a long time from that time to really, I'm still struggling with it. Like, I'm practicing that. I'm not 100% with that, but I'm getting a hell of a lot better. And to the point where I'm like, I think I needed to be able to recognize this was intentional. The abuse that I endured in that home, it was intentional. It was by choice. And when you start to realize that people lack common sense, I used to make excuses and be like, well, maybe they grew up in a different home with a different experience, with a different this, right? But when you start to see these people actually know how to behave in front of different people and just not you, this is them. It's them, right? And so, I quit smoking when I found out I was pregnant. And then when I did start up again during drinking one night, I quit it. It wasn't, because it's like, you're my baby. My cigarette fingers are touching my baby. My smoke is on me, and that felt gross. I was like thinking of my kids. Like, this is gross. Like, I'm smoking cigarettes and like holding my baby. That's so disgusting. Like, I don't like the smell of my own fingers. It's kind of like getting sick of my own shit. I don't like the smell of my fingers. Can you imagine, like, I don't want my babies to smell like smoke. It's not like we smoked in the home either. Like, we would smoke outside, but it was just like the idea of it. Like, you can smell smoke. And this is where also, when I would have men approach me to be romantic with me and they're smokers and I'm not, it's like, what kind of fairness is there? You expect me to kiss your mouth and it's covered in cigarette smoke, and you want me to smell like, I can't stand the smell of cigarette smoke. It's actually, I'm really sensitive to it. And it's gross. And to me, I've had some experiences in my past with cigarettes and things like that, so I don't. And so, I don't like it. But I also found, like, there's some people who, like, I don't know. And even their dad was just there's some things about him where I just felt like he was just not, he reminded me a lot of my dad, just like didn't really care so much about his teeth and stuff like that. And I can relate to that because empaths are very similar to nurses, where I haven't always kept up my hygiene either, because when I was in depression and I was struggling with dealing with way too much all at one time, that was challenging for me, where I didn't have I was burnt out. Like, and when you get burnt out, you don't have time to brush your teeth. You don't, unless you have to go and you know you're going to see somebody. There are times when I forget to brush my teeth when I'm going to walk my dogs in the morning, because I just want to walk my dogs and make sure they get out fast, and I'm not expecting to see anybody, and then I brush my teeth in the morning of the day. But there's sometimes I'm like, if I'm not going to see one, I'm not going to do that. I will do it. This is not the same as that. I'm exhausted, and I only have enough energy in that day to try to attempt the dishes that were in the sink, and understanding, like, I can't stand the smell of my own breath. Like, that's how bad it would have to get. And thank God I've worked my way up from that, but I still, like, am giving myself grace in certain times, because, like, if I'm sick, that's not my priority. I want to rest because I still have lots to do. And so that's why I'm also not reaching out and dating and things like that. Like, I still got my own shit to clean up and clear out. But here's the thing: those men that were doing the same thing, like, they had the women doing all the work in their house and managing their emotions. So what was their overwhelm there? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, people do things for different reasons, and that's what I'm trying to look at. Like, you either got to acknowledge it and take care of it, or you don't. And whether it's like you're the abused or the abuser, like it's still our job, unfortunately, to work on these things. And it is challenging and it is unfair, but it's still our responsibility, right? Because whatever we don't heal, we pass on to our children. That is true. Which is part of that PTSD video I did and how it's affected me and my kids. And these are one of the reasons why I don't go back to these fuckers, because it is a choice. It was an option, and they chose not to choose better. And so with alcohol, I definitely felt like it numbed my defenses, that I would make decisions that were not the best for me and mine. And it was because I just felt so lonely at the time and isolated that I just needed some sort of connection. And unfortunately, the only connections I had at that time were the ones that I developed through my trauma. And so they were trauma bonds, and there were people that were using and abusing me. And so when I would do that, I would reach out, and like I was in a good headspace and I was a lot of fun to be around and I was nurturing, and so were they. But like they were only coming for pretty much like one thing. They were just, these are men that were coming to get laid and not like give anything back. And in that time, I was actually looking for a partner. I wasn't looking for a quick connection. I wanted long term, and I thought if I could just show as one man in particular, which was Todd, if I could just show him like I can be that person. It's like you don't realize until other people start saying it. Like I was looking to be chosen, so I just thought maybe if I show him this, and maybe if I do that, and maybe if I just I thought like because I wasn't maybe sexual enough, or maybe I wasn't thin enough, or maybe I wasn't homemaking enough, and I just kept going back to him thinking that, because he made me think that I was always the problem. And whenever something came up and I would want to bring it up with him, he'd always turn it around on me, and we would never end up talking about him anymore. And if we did talk about him, he would get angry, and then he would ignore. And that was like every time we'd have. So it made it really hard to ever bring anything up, because that's what he'd do. He'd either like make excuses, turn around on me, or he would just get so irritated and agitated and projecting on me and saying, you're so insecure, I can't stand this is too much, your drama. And they would, and the texting, or, because it's usually texting, it's never usually a phone call. And it was really frustrating. And then we just wait a period of time to reconnect. Like we're just friends, and like we hadn't had that, and I would allow that because that's what I received from my father. And so the drinking, I had to get to a point where I'm just realizing like I'm making bad decisions. And while I thought of it as like I had the alcohol because for me it was like a detach. I had to like, that's my way. Like for me is like I had to detach from the pain that I was experiencing. I had to numb out because I was in so much pain and I couldn't see it. I didn't know why I was in so much pain. I don't know how I was causing it. It felt like I was like, no matter what I did, I couldn't win. And while I've experienced that in life later down the line, it's for different reasons, because I acknowledge now, like I'm still learning, and I've had a lot of bad advice. And it's not only that, it's just like I wasn't raised in a successful, nurturing home where discipline and, living a beautiful life was exampled. And so another thing I found, so after the drinking, I started really recognizing, okay, like when I do this, this is what I get. And then I felt like shit, I felt like shit for myself. And all that heaviness, people really talked about trying to forgive the other person for their bad behavior, but I found the hardest thing was forgiving myself. And why? Because in childhood, I was required to behave to a higher standard than not only my own parents, but those around me. And so it's almost like I was expecting more from me because others expected more from me. But that's because they would put more on me, and they just acted like it was no big deal. And it was a big deal. It is a big deal. And so that's where the depression was not only coming in, is because I was carrying all this like shame. Because the thing is with that Todd guy is he was very public when we first started dating. But after that, when he would still deal with me as a situationship and back and forth and claim that we were just good friends, that means he's sleeping with all his other girlfriends too, like his friends that are girls. That's what he does. That's who he is. And when you start to really connect the dots, it really grosses you the fuck out. And the fact is, I would ask him about these things, and he would deny them. He would make it seem like I was the issue, like I was the dramatic one, like I'm just jealous. And it's like, well, I am jealous because you're not giving me what I deserve, and that is time and attention and reciprocation for what I give to you. And I knew that jealousy was being sparked because he was doing things that boyfriends should not do, you know? And while I did realize that I had a lot of anxious attachments too, that's not to say, like, he had, when I look back, the things that I was accepting from him is so horrible. Like, he really was a very, very bad boyfriend. And he's just very good at manipulating and gaslighting. It's gross when you look at it. Like, that's why I don't understand when people reconcile. Because, like, if you have seen their true colors and you can recognize, if that's why you don't need to, I don't know why people keep in touch with their exes. Unless you're co-parenting and you have to be civil. And I understand, I'm sure there's some people that can be friendly, but through my experiences, that's going to be a no-go unless I decide I deem it safe, right? So yeah, so that is part of, so the attention is part of that addiction too. Like, I had an addiction to attention, but here's the thing. I didn't get very much attention growing up. I was a wallflower. I stayed to myself. I wasn't confident to reach out to people. I waited until people talked to me. I waited till men chose me. I did not feel attractive at all. At all. I could not see how I was attractive to these men, and that's why I felt the need to, give all the things, like give sex and cook food and, try to keep them relaxed and happy, because I didn't think, I don't know, I just didn't think a lot of myself. And that's because I wasn't raised to think much of myself, because I was raised in a household that diminished me, and that's abusive. And it's not just that they didn't know what they didn't know, it's because my mom would not stand up to my father, and my father had no problem dumping his shit on us to make us feel like shit so he could feel big, because he is surrounded at work by assholes too. But, like, that's, your home is supposed to be your safe, soft place. Just because you're experiencing stress at work, like, that doesn't mean, like, while I was short-tempered, I definitely was short-tempered with my kids when I was, learning from my parents and, like, playing those roles. But it got to the point where, like, I don't enjoy yelling at my kids. That doesn't make me feel good. That doesn't make them feel good. And I could see how it was hurting them. So, like, this is when they're in their younger years, and I just didn't know how, but I had to start asking myself, like, how do I stop doing that? And then I asked, why am I doing that? So a lot of these different substances that I'm talking about, that's pretty much, like, why am I drinking? Because I was lonely and I was in pain, and when I couldn't drink anymore because I realized, like, what I was doing in my life, that's when I had to really come in contact with the pain, because the alcohol was numbing it out. I would be able to hold so much of the stress because I'm used to tolerating abuse and stress as my childhood. So as an adult, I couldn't really. It almost feels like my when you have, like, a dehumidifier and the alarm goes off when it's full. It's almost like that had been deactivated as a child intentionally, so that my father could just unload, and then I was getting it from, you got to understand, my siblings learned certain traits too. Like, we all picked up traits from the narcissist on how, this is our only example for the most part, like, how do we handle life? And when you're not allowed to express your emotions, you have to suppress them. And so I also feel like my siblings, like, my mom did that, but I also think my siblings did that to a certain regard, but I think they also took it out on me, because my brother and sister were a lot closer than I was, so I always felt like the odd man out. And while I would hang out with my sister a lot, whenever we got in a fight, she went over to hang out with my brother, and she was also she always put him on a high pedestal in a weird way, and, like, always, like, oh, he's the best this and he's the best that. I'm like, well, I don't know, like, I'm sure he has potential to be good at this, but I haven't seen evidence of that quite yet. And even though I used to give him the same compliments, it's almost because I thought I had to. That was the world I lived in. That's how I was raised. And I feel like that's, I'm going to have to pass that off on society or my mother, like, trying to make it seem like my father's not so bad. And maybe I don't have memories of all these things. I just have to take what I'm seeing in my environment now. I do have some memories, just not all the memories. And so the attention... So the tension for me was when I met Todd. He was very charming, very friendly. He did make some effort, more effort than what my kid's deadbeat dad was doing. So it didn't have to be a lot. It just had to be more than, he just had to do more than the deadbeat dad. I mean, what more is that? Like, you could get more, he could give less than a stranger. That's just being a coach or a friendly face to my kids, right? So I just wanted more than what I was receiving. And so, Todd was actually cruel to my kids as well. He not only took food from my fridge, but there were times when his oldest son, was very much like him, where they would use moments to really try to make my son, like I remember in a soccer game, like he had really injured his toe, and they were both like, oh, it's not that bad, keep going, kind of thing. And I realized later, I was like, yeah, okay, maybe you should keep going, like, you know, if it's just because I'm like thinking these guys know something more than me, because you're a dad. You know, you're raised where you think men are supposed to have some sort of different perspective, and like, because men can do this and women can do that. So I'm like, okay, like this must be where their experience lies. And like, I remember Everett talking to me about that later, and just being like, that is like that my toe was, I think his toe was fractured, if I'm going to be quite honest. And maybe that's where, you know, I came into contact with that doctor, and he totally didn't believe me about my toe. Maybe that's my karma. Because, and I advocate for myself then, and as an adult, and that's kind of what I just got that right now, and that's maybe how my son felt, was like irritated with me, because it's like, you're not listening to me, it hurts, you know. I'd like to think I gave him some choice, but encouraged him to keep going. But like, I should have said more with those fuckers, because it was like Todd and his son were like bullies, and to my kids, and my kids got blamed for so much shit. And his kids, you know, he would, well, I agree with him taking his son out of the room to talk to him in privacy, not to humiliate him, because I would do it right there and then, because I felt like people had to see that I was disciplining my kids, and that I was trying to be a good parent. And in reality, it was just humiliating my kid in front of other people, which is what was done to me. And so I would be like, oh, I like how he does that. But the thing is, I don't know what he said to his kids in that room. And whenever they were all together, and he was irritated with their bickering, he would say, and it was the kid's fault, like his kid's fault, he would just say stuff like, oh, all of you guys just get along. Well, no, your son is being a dick right now. You need to figure that out. Your son is bullying my kid. He's younger, but he's still bullying my kid, and you're not doing anything about that. And so there's a lot of things I just kept choosing to ignore, which sucks. And I feel horrible for that, because honestly, like, my kids are fucking animals in the way that they just really, like, yeah, they need their growth still, don't get me wrong, but like the stuff they put up with, and a lot of it is my fault as well, where I just thought I needed a partner in life to get through life. In reality, I didn't. I really don't. These people can telling you, try to convince you you need a partner, you need a man. Like, I fix my dryer, I fix my shit, I fix my things. Men can have more muscle in some areas, but don't underestimate a woman with a sledgehammer. You know, like, I find ways to get shit done. I'm going to show you when I do my tour tomorrow. I just brought furniture up my stairs, you know? Like, what extreme things do I need these men for, where they can't even do it for themselves? Like, they can't even help themselves. And so, like, this is my pattern with these men. It's just like, ugh. But it's like, I just wanted a friendly face. And it's like, it's really hard to find people, like, because I'm still trying to grow myself, right? But it's also like, a lot of the people along the way I found have just not been much better than the ones I left in the past. And so with that attention seeking, when you realize a friendly face doesn't guarantee values and morals and common courtesy and consideration, you start looking at people differently. And that's what made me realize I need boundaries, because I was running in too fast, impulsively, to connect with people, because I thought I needed people. I thought that's people told me, that's the message I'm getting in all, like, from social media. You know, the idea is get friends, get numbers, and I had to realize, like, numbers isn't it. Numbers isn't it. That leaves a lot of to every number, that's an open doorway to an individual who can potentially hurt and take from you. And so that's where I had to put myself, instead of like just running in blindly. Now I start looking at people like, you have the potential to hurt me. And so I have to look for signs that you're safe, instead of just giving you the benefit of the doubt that you are. You know, humans are inhumane, a lot of them. When you watch some of these videos on YouTube on how these parents are treating their kids, and like, I understand not knowing what you didn't know, but there's a line, there's a level where you have to get to a point and be like, okay, my kid's crying, my kid is in pain, I understand that this is what I was raised with, but this is not working. And then putting yourself into your position, saying, this didn't work for me either. Why did I think this has worked for my kids? Because when I was in this position, I was overworked in all areas of life, not just from a child, but then as a parent, as a sibling, as a daughter, as a coworker. you know, by my bosses, like from all areas of life, I was being dumped on, and just one after the other, through doctors, through people that you're meant to trust, through just whenever you're trying to get ahead, it felt like, because I didn't know how to advocate for myself. So it's almost like you're drawn to like these situations and these people, and you just keep getting your head dunked underwater until you can't take anymore. And that's where, you know, like I was suppressing with caffeine, and so like caffeine, my Tim Hortons double double was definitely a cup of comfort, and also the caffeine in there. It allowed me to keep going when I really should have. Once again, I was ignoring my body's natural alarm to go off when it tells me I'm tired. And I'm like, well, I can't stop. I have all these things to do. And I was trying to create a life that was built by other people. And even though like I did a lot of rentals, because my home was meant to be my safe place, because I experienced so much. I think it's because what I grew up in around my parents in that house and the energy of it. I wanted just to have a home that I could settle into and just focus and play games. But in reality, the rentals took so much of my time, I never got to the games. And same with these people. Like, I was hoping maybe I'll get help from these people. Like, rentals is easier with two people than one, right? No, not when you have someone who is unscrewing every screw that you put into a board and cutting every board in half. Not literally, but they might as well be, right? And then there was a man I met who, he was a bit older and he was not attractive to me, but like he was willing to help me with my basement. So I thought that's a good trait, right? Wrong. This man was a narcissist, and he was using me to triangulate his ex-wife, and he was not honest, and he was not a safe person, and he was slimy too. And anytime I go onto those dating apps, he tried to take money from me. Like, I was trying to sell these like internet boxes or whatever because I no longer need them, like the cable boxes. And he's like, oh, I can do that. And then he got the money for them. And then I asked him about the money. He's like, well, I spent it, so I have to pay you back. And I'm like, what? Like that's not what we talked about. So like, and then I remember my son, like when my son was so little, he had a big ass chocolate bunny, and this guy was over at my house, paying me the money. And then I think that's what it was, or maybe he's just stopping by because I still struggled with like a harsh no, fuck off. And my son gave him his bunny, and I wasn't expecting him to keep it, but he had this daughter who was so spoiled, so I'm sure he just gave it to her or ate it himself. But I'm like, when a kid offers you their chocolate bunny, you don't fucking take it, you asshole. Like, who does that? Oh, it's one thing you don't want to insult a kid, but like, you can do that differently and still not take their fucking Easter bunny. That thing cost me a lot of money. And that's how this guy was. And then he also would work, and he asked me to babysit his daughter. And then later, I just like, in the moment, I didn't know what to say and how to react. And then I'm like looking back, like, why the fuck am I your first go-to babysit your kid? And you don't even know me well enough to leave your daughter alone with me. Like, alone. Like, when my son was there, I was there. No. And I did leave my kid with Todd. I regret that, because I remember calling up, and he's talking about how he's smoking and getting high, and he lives on a main street, and his kids are all in that parking lot of his condo, like scooting around and stuff in the dark. And I'm like, you're fucking putting your mouth up to another woman's mouth, receiving smoke from her, which I find that highly inappropriate. That is something I don't even want to do just hygienically, but also like, that's a weird situation to put yourself in. But then also, like, it's nighttime and you're high as fuck and you aren't actually watching my kids, because when I'd watch his kids for the wedding that I went to, I was like hands on. I am hands on. I am very aware. And the first time he let me watch his kid, he shouldn't have left me with his kid, because I didn't know him that well, and I didn't know his kid that well, and his kid took off around the side of the house and I couldn't find him. Like, why are you leaving your kid here? I barely know you. And then why am I letting you eat my food out of my fridge? Like, I've learned so much over the past years, but it's taken me time to really, like, you want to believe that there's good people out there, and you don't want to insult them when you, like, treat them like they're, like, a criminal. But, like, in reality, I've dealt with a lot of criminal-type people who are thieves in energy and my resources. And so the attention thing is a big one, because like, I want to be friendly to other people who have been in my own experience, and I don't want to be cold and cruel, but at the same time, it's just, I seem to have this magnet when I'm friendly to people who, I don't know, they just take it and want to run with it. So it gets me to the point where I just don't want to be friendly anymore, but that's just not who I am. I don't want to let these people fuck with me. you know? So I just have to learn how to get better and less, and I just have to believe what I'm seeing when I see it. And I don't like to judge people, but like if your life is a mess, I don't care if you're a prey or predator, I can't have you close. That's kind of where I've come. I'm at the point where if you know, unless you're paying me and you want to pay for a coaching session and you are open and receptive to change, that is very different than somebody expecting me to volunteer my time, which is limited right now because of everything that I've experienced and everything I'm trying to build and create for me and mine. Like the fact that you want my time for free, that is crazy. That is crazy talk, because I don't want your time for free, and when you offer it, I'm not accepting it. So why the fuck are you expecting it from me? And so that's where how I dealt with the attention thing. And whenever I felt like I was longing towards these people of my past, I grieve it. I have to bring myself over into devil's advocate and realize they were never that person that they portrayed when they were with you. Those moments that you're craving, that was never them. That was their mask, right? That was hiding their cruel intentions. And so I have to get there, and I have to keep going there and recognizing these people are not, if you know what I watch a lot of like different like police cam videos and things like that. And when you see these people when they're like, when they don't want to get caught and they're, oh, I'm so sorry, no, oh no, I wasn't. There was a video I watched, this guy was like going around videotaping underneath women's skirts, and some lady finally caught him in the store, and you should have heard how soft he got. And it would be hard to believe that that face that he showed you after he got caught is very different from the intentions of him putting his camera underneath her skirt. And so it's very confusing, and that's the whole thing. The friendliest of faces can be the most vindictive, and that's what I've learned. I don't want a friendly face. I don't want someone who is well scripted, and it's like I need to dig deep. If someone's going to be in my life, you're going to be in the third, is that what they call the third degree, where you constantly are going after information, whatever that is. You're going to be under the light. I'm going to be, you know, it's going to be like an interview and more, you know. So then I had to, understand, like I had to get good with her true colors. And if you are still feeling confused about who a person is, you have to take the worst case scenario. I'm sorry, that is like for your safety, because common courtesy has explanations and communication. Someone who doesn't want you to be confused about who they are and who they aren't, they're going to offer that, they're going to show it, you're not going to be in question of it, right? And so people who lack boundaries aren't capable of thinking about how the other person is feeling. And so a lot of nurses show up very victimized, kind of like an empath, but differently. Like, what was me? Like, I've never had an empath. Empaths, it's hard for them to ask for help, okay? But yet, a narcissist has no problem asking for things. They're gonna pair it up with like victim-y energy, or like, oh, I just went through this and went through this. Like, I've been through shit, and it was still hard for me to accept support from arenas that everybody has access to, no matter where they are in life, like whatever walk in life they are, right? Like, there's not supposed to be any questions asked. But even when I went into these arenas, I was still being asked questions and looked at differently and judged differently than other people that were in the arenas. And I saw that there were predators in that arena that these people were connected to. And yet I'm the one that's being questioned, I'm the one being targeted, and I'm the one that's being questioned, why do you do? And I've experienced abuse for my life, up to this point, where I'm working on no longer tolerating it. And so the next thing would be, okay, so the screen time for me. So what happened when it took me a long time to figure this shit out, because these people are good, and especially with your upbringing, that's why I am angry, and I don't want my father back in my life, and I feel bad for my mom because she was at the hands of him, but she also was given a period of time to take care of herself, and she chose not to. So I'm kind of like, I can't. And same with my siblings, I just can't. You know, I can't deal with this. You're a part of this. And when you came back, it was like to take something for you, not to give me the validation and the acknowledgement, like, you were wrong. You treated me badly. You used and abused me. You did not treat me like family. No, you did not. And so I've never gotten that. And now it's kind of to the point where it's like, it's almost like, now I don't want it. You know, when you recover and heal yourself, it's like, I needed it when I was in trouble. I'm not in trouble anymore. I don't need your help anymore. I learned to connect with myself, so I don't need to connect with people like that. And so with the depression was all that emotional pain, and when I was in there, Like, I also, like, a lot of things, like, I can no longer renovate my home because I lost my numbers in my mind, right? Like, I don't have the numbers game like I used to. Because I piled on so much shit on my plate, trying to achieve a certain level and get to a certain goal with all the wrong advice. I mean, these are things that I did, so I have to be accountable for them. And so I'm cleaning up that sort of karmic mess, and that means I don't have the money that like I've done the work, but I haven't received the pay. There's so many things that I've had, like in workplaces where I didn't take the court, but I've lost money, and I should have received money for that, and I couldn't, and I didn't because I was exhausted. When you're burnt out, you are burnt out, and the thing is, you don't feel it because your norm is that high cortisol. Your norm is that chaos. So in the work, in the hermit mode, and a discard that is your lesson for the blessing, that alone time is actually helping you moderate and move from this crazy chaos down to this calm, peaceful place. And that's where the boredom does sneak in at times, because you're like, I'm used to all the drama. I'm used to something happening. I'm used to someone coming back, and I wish I had my fly sweater. Coming back into my life, and so you almost kind of feel on guard. And there is a PTSD associated with like people coming back. There was a period in time where I was afraid of that because I was at such a low point and I was vulnerable, and I just hadn't gotten my clear answer on who they were yet. Now I would love for them to come back. I would love for you people to knock on my door. The ones that left me when I needed you the most, I would love for you to come at my door. I really would. Really. Knock loud. I don't have a doorbell. Honestly, I'm just a very different person than I used to be. And so yeah, so the screen time for me is I didn't want to, it's like the solution to my problems were far greater than what I could figure a way through them. And so it was easier for me to zone out. Now, some of that is part of the thought process where you need to just lay there and rest and have nothing on your plate and do nothing. But when there are things you need to be doing time to time here and there, and you need to like build momentum eventually to start getting back up again. And so that's where the screen time, you have to get to a point where you're like, okay, what am I getting out of the screen time? It's kind of like when you eat too much candy and you're kind of sick of like what you're watching. It's almost like, you know, you get sick of the movies because you can see the fucked up messaging in it, and you're like, I can't believe I watched this as a kid. Like, what is that movie I watched with like Michael Keaton, I think it is, and like he's a snowman, Jack Frost. He turns into a snowman, and like you know, that's where his energy went. And like, and part of that movie near the end, he gets back, you know, after he's processed the pain of his father passing and stuff like that, and he's had closure. He reconnects with his old hockey buddy. He's like, yeah, we were mad because you just left us, and or something like that. I'm just like, dude's dad died. Oh my god, like. And you're mad at him? Like, what would you do if your dad died? Like, there's no sort of empathy taught during these movies. It's just really weird when you watch it, and that makes it really hard for me to watch TV because like you just catch the messaging. And then even when I used to be like obsessed with tarot readings, it got to the point because I could see through. So here's the thing: the people that were reading the messages, they're reading it through their lens, and I start to see like, you know, they associate this is a message from spirit, and it's like, okay, but like that up from here coming through here is going through a lot of different layers that you have not removed to get your clear message, which I do think we get insight. I do think, you know, once you start clearing up your life and unpiling your plate and not taking on so much and getting more focused, you will start getting like aha moments, and you'll start getting, okay, what do I need to do next? Okay, that's what I want to do. And you'll naturally just start doing what you know you need to do because you removed all the blocks that were stopping you from getting to where you need to go. Those are roadblocks put by you, and these are other people's beliefs. These are other people being bitches and bullies. These are like belief systems that were put in place to stop humans from elevating and really creating that beautiful life. And once you start moving those, now you get the downloads, as they call them, if that's what you want to call it. To me, it's just, I call it insight. You get insight. You're more attached to like the path you're going on, and sometimes there's still a couple things to clear up, and so sometimes you have to go back into old arenas to close that off in order to move forward, and it helps. And so a lot of people think ADHD, for me, they think it's just like I just take a pill, but for me, I had to heal my trauma. And once I heal my trauma, when I cycled through all those things, that has allowed me. Now I'm still working on my memory. It's still not completely there, but I still have a lot of stress and things to work out. Well, I don't have all the answers yet to certain things, and I don't feel completely like in that zone. And when I have my money coming in consistently, we'll talk. I'll let you know how I feel then. It'll be very different. But Until then, I do play games to start working on my memory and my thinking skills and my strategy and things like that to get that sort of vision back. But like I still have to. I think I'm still doing too much right now. Because I am still impatient, and that's just a revision. I just have to revise that, right? So like overworking is the thing. Like, why do I have to get to where I'm going? Because I don't enjoy where I am right now. There's things that I want to hang out in a pool in my backyard, not around other people. I want a private fence. I want to fix my back patio so I can hang out there more instead of sitting here by this window. And like, I can't do things, but like, I also don't really want to be out in the world as much. Like, I want to do things like play sports. I want to go shopping, but it's not like I feel the need to go create a social circle. That's not really what I'm looking for. Like, whatever I go through the screen right here, that's that. And it'd be nice to have some close friends, but I have my 2 kids and I have pets that I'm responsible for. So I don't really have time for friends right now anyways, right? So like, I have a lot of work to do. And so like, that's kind of like, that can be something I have to watch out for, because I can, with that caffeine partnered and that sugar and the carbs partnered up with that overworking, that can really drive me right into the ground, and now I'm down and out again. So like, those are things I have to be careful for. The caffeine says I have to do more. I don't feel good enough, or like I'm at the right place. And so that's why it helped me quit caffeine, because that is like a stimulant, much like your cortisol. It spikes things. And I'm not a doctor. I don't know all the details. I've done some research and I've kind of come to the conclusion with my own answers, but I think you'll find that if you Google it. It's like cortisol and sugar spike, sugar and caffeine spike your cortisol. And if you already have high cortisol because of a life that you're living and you don't feel like you're stressed, you just kind of know that you need to relax, but then you relax with alcohol. Like, that's like you've normalized your high stress ADHD brain, which is actually trauma. And so you feel like you have to do too much because you've probably grown up with parents who made you feel less than. And you know what? I don't know if this is all intentional. I know that I didn't give my kids enough attention, but I really tried hard to like really make them feel loved and cared for. But there are some things that I did that were passed on from my parents that could have affected that absorption of that, right? And so now I have to work really hard at making sure like I'm trying to make up for what I wasn't able to do and try to do it now. And so they can see that I am trying and that I am safe. And so I'm trying to think. What else? You can get addicted to the emotional purge and releases, there are times where, like, I'm like, do I really need to cry? Do I really need to cry? Some things are emotional when it's about my kids. I'm working on that. That is my biggest remorse and regret about how I hurt them. And this is why I talk about this stuff so clearly, is for other people who have not had kids. I talk to my kids about this. I talk to whoever I can that will listen. You want to be in a good place where you're independent emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially. And if you're not there yet, I would not be having kids. I would not even be having pets at that point, because you are not fully cooked and fully grown. And if you need help recognizing that, we can do a coaching session. They are available. That's in the description box. And so, yeah, sometimes it's just so, like, you're crying all the time, but, like, here's the thing. It's like, I had to realize, like, my choices were making me emotional. I thought that I just had emotions to purge all the time because I'm sensitive, and I could be sensitive, and I can be empathic, but it doesn't mean I always have to cry at everything. And so I realized I had to grieve more, and I needed more education. Like, why am I still so sad? I'm not seeing, like, how I can become better and do better. And, like, life is challenging. That makes sense. There's going to be periods that are emotional, but I was crying. I was like, I had so much. And sometimes I think I was just touching on so much pain and recreating it. But it wasn't just through me and what I was watching and absorbing, but it's also, like, the people I was connecting myself to. Like, stop being such an asshole. And then I had to realize, you know what? I have a choice. I don't have to keep choosing them. And yes, once again, I was lonely. So a lot of these addictions stem from attention, a lack of human connection, right? And so but the thing is like, I had to learn how to love myself. So in that work that I did, now I can see it in other people if they've done it or they haven't done it. And a lot of people are like, well, we all heal differently. Sure, okay. But if you're messy, messy is messy, okay? And if you can't apologize for your bad behavior, then what do you want me to do with that? You know, yeah, I did that with strangers. I did that with family. I've done it with strangers. I've done it with my bitch neighbor, and she did not deserve it the way she treated me. But I still knew that, like, my dog was barking, and I didn't want that to affect her dog. And so I apologized because I thought I'd worked with him for a long period of time, and all of a sudden he had a glitch, right? And I thought I had evidence that he could see her dog and not run and bark at it when I had a fence up. And I had worked with him for a long time, and then there was a moment where I didn't have him, and it happened, right? So I apologize for that because I'm like, I don't want your dog to be scared or scared of other dogs. And yet she's the one that came back and yelled the C word and the B word at me and whatever have you. So I feel like I gave too much to other people, and so trying to think what else. Okay, so screens is a sign that I'm not doing what I need to be doing. I do find it necessary sometimes because sometimes, like, you can only grow so fast. Too much growth and you feel that shit, and you need to, like, just take a rest. There are times I'm like, too many lessons. My brain is like, enough. It's not always like, you know, academic stuff up there. Sometimes it's just like, okay, I'm taking on too much. I'm trying to figure out too much. I'm working on too many projects, and I'm receiving too many lessons all at once. So I kind of need to, like, okay, bring it back. Maybe focus on one thing at a time, or two things, or three things, but not 10 things. And so when I have that screen time addiction where I can't do what I need to do, because I do use that as like a break in between doing hard things and things that I don't want to do. I do use it so as a reward, but the thing is, there are times when I would watch screens because I either wasn't prepared because I was too tired to do the work that I needed to do, or I was confused and I didn't have clarity on where and how I should move forward because I just had too many things that were going on. And excuse me. Sometimes I just didn't want to. Sometimes it's just hard. So, like, these things can be seen as like addictive substances, but at the same time, sometimes it's almost like I needed them until I could get to the next phase. Like the caffeine, I have no problem not having caffeine now. I don't need it. I realize if I have caffeine, it's interesting because you take caffeine because you're tired and you need more time during the day to get things done. But like when you do go to sleep, you're not actually fully rested. Like I can't if I have caffeine, I'm not getting a good night's sleep because it spikes my cortisol, and the cortisol is what I think wakes me up at night. And so even when I have sugar, like I have sugar, my sugar isn't, I think I have insulin resistance, so it's not being processed like it should be, so it sits in my system, and so I also wake up at night. And so like now, it's like you're trying to get things done, but you're not really, and then if I have caffeine, sugar, and refined carbs while I'm doing rhinos or garden work, it's like I'm pushing my body past its physical limit. I already know that. And so like I also am not going to be able to have a deep sleep to repair my body overnight. So like a lot of these things you think they're helping that, but they're actually hindering. Even alcohol to kind of suppress and feel like you can numb some of this pain and like stress out, it's actually affecting your body. Where like I got to the point where I would like a cold beer in the evening, here and there. Not often, but like I would have a case, and I would buy a case every, like, we'll say 3 months. And so when I had that case, I would usually have a couple beers for a week, and then that was it. And that was my relaxation. But what I found with that is when I had that beer, I would wake up almost like every morning at like 2 to 3 a.m., the spiritual hour. And it's because I think it was because of my sugar, because of sugar and beer. I couldn't process it properly at the time as well. And I was dehydrated, and it was affecting my liver. Like, I don't have all the doctor explanations, the scientific explanations, but I definitely know when you're doing something, you know it's something different. And so I've actually gotten to the point where now, because I'm not having caffeine, I'm not having sugar, that I can actually sleep through the night and get a good sleep. So as long as I don't leave my phone running, because there are times where I would want something to fall asleep to, and then I wake up in the night. You see? So like you have to kind of fight that like comfort that those things provide you, because they're keeping you safe, but not safe and secure. They're keeping you safe from your growth. And so when you start to see how these things are actually affecting you from moving forward, and how when you're not getting sleep and now you wake up and now you feel like your brain is fritzy, but you don't really have any energy to do something, but you really know you need to do something and you want to do something, but when you go to do it, you don't have the focus or the fuel. This is when I start like realizing, okay, phone before bed spikes the cortisol at the wrong time. I think it's supposed to spike in the morning, and so that also means no phone in the morning, but you do want to get up in the morning, I think. and get the daylight in your eyeballs. And so I'm just trying to like implement sort of these things, but also I'm practicing the pause, and you get better at it, and you're gonna fail at it at first, but like practicing the pause is huge. And like I realized I couldn't keep buying fast food for comfort when I didn't have the energy to make food because I was exhausted and that was expensive. And like the food I was getting is kind of like the shows that I was watching. I was like, I don't feel this is not hitting like it used to, which is also something to keep you pressing, because what's going to happen is these things are kind of like they have expiry dates, and I do believe it gets to a time where like you've got to just do what you don't want to do, because the things that are kind of holding you up, these fillers, are really fucking with you. And that leads me to another one: delusion, spiritual delusion, thinking that God is going to save you, thinking that you're manifesting when you're really doing nothing and you're just daydreaming. I mean, that's great, but it wasn't into action. It wasn't until I got into action until I really realized what I really wanted to work for. And I realized I'm fine staying in this small house. I don't need a bigger house. A bigger house means more work. A bigger house means whatever. And it means I have to make more money. And so, like, it means more work. I need less work. I need rest right now. I don't need a bigger house. And so the delusion, I had to get in touch with like what those things mean. And it's kind of like, when I thought I was ready to date somebody and I realized I really was not. I'm really not ready. I thought I was ready. Just because I was attracted to a man at work doesn't mean I'm ready. And you know what? It's like, if I can't even handle my own emotions and I'm exhausted right now, I don't have time to talk to someone and work through our conflict. That's part of a relationship. You have to learn each other and learn to be compatible. Some of that and has disagreements and things. You can't have someone that's always saying yes. That's not a healthy relationship. And so there are things in my life where I'm like, if I were to have a person enter my life, how can I see them consistently when I can't even keep my house up consistently? I can't even walk my dogs consistently. That's not fair to my dogs. And so I wish I would have realized this when I was a single mom, because I should have just said, no, I'm really doing fine on my own. And that's what these people were actually codependent on you. And they're cowardly, and they're not brave and strong like you. And like, that's what I needed. That's what I got from these, is like, wow, I really couldn't see myself clearly. That was by design, in my childhood home. And it kept me controlled and conformed. And society just really enforced that idea. And I really am not weak. I really am not. Like, I have softness to me when I'm allowed to be soft, but like, don't underestimate that. Like, I don't think people have seen I talk about my full version. I don't think people have seen my full version. And I don't know that I've seen my full version when it comes to it. I don't know what that looks like, but I don't know that I'd want to see it after I've seen my full version in a positive way. Like, there are only so many things I can do. And I realize, like, to protect me and mine, but like, I don't know what that looks like. And it's not to say I would be careless, and like, I've gone scorched earth before on people who wanted to play, but that was just a pinch of that. That wasn't like my full-on version. I was still in a very professional social setting, and so it's not like I think there's more there. I think there's more there, and I'm actually pretty happy about that. That's what I needed. I needed to get in touch with that, because I'm so sick of people, playing with me. And I don't think they know who they're playing with. I really don't think, if they understood. I did a video with people really don't understand. They think that they got the wrong one. And so I'm trying to think. So delusion and spiritual beliefs, they didn't come from me, but like, I did tie into them. But I do believe that also stemmed from my childhood, because like, being raised in a Baptist church is horrible. They used videos to scare the shit out of your children. And there's a lot of weird beliefs that, like, now, just because you've been like dunked in some water, that a human has, like, what, clarified and crystallized, or I don't even know. Look, what they spiritualize the water in the name of God, and now, because that man has been deemed a pastor, and now he has, like, who says he's a pastor? People. What are the people? Like, my dad went to that church. I know who my dad was. There's a lot of people like my dad in some of these churches. And so I just, like, there's a lot of delusion about being saved, about a man saving me. All the men that I have attracted at this point are men that need saving. And I'm the saver. Not the savior, the saver. They're looking for me to help them. And I was drawn to them to help them. And that's by design as well. Okay, so these are all things that are not of me. They're placed on me like a burden, right? And like I couldn't get love unless I showed up in a certain way. That's fucked up. You are my blood. You are my father, my mother, my brother, my sister, my cousins, my aunts. Like it's all of them. I don't talk to any of my family at that point. It's me and my kids and my two pets. That's it. That's enough for me right now after all I've been through. And you know, some people say like they don't understand. Like I've had to grieve all of those individuals because I've not once received any sort of like comeback where it's like I'm so sorry. I didn't see that I was doing like nothing. It's all the only time they come back is when they need something from you. There's no sort of apology, accountability, or any remorse or anything. And like can you imagine having to grieve people that are still alive? Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to grieve missing a person. You know, nobody wants. I worked so hard on those relationships. If you saw my other video about how hard I worked on just getting a damn beanbag chair together, that's just a tip of the iceberg about how much effort I put into my relationships. That's a chair. I was ready to throw it in the garbage. These are people in my life. So like I put so much effort into things, and it's just it's gross when you see what they're not willing to do, and that's who they are. That's not your fault. And so like I had to learn the delusion was what I was protecting me, and then not just the delusion of, well, what if this, and what if there's a misunderstanding, what if they feel like this, I feel bad for them, what if they're struggling in life, who fucking cares? I was the one who was really struggling. They all had extra help, extra resources, extra money. And were they attached to toxic people? Yeah, they were, but they also had a lot more resources to be able to get themselves out of that situation, and they decided not to. Okay, I gave them insight to where they were. They could have used what I was telling them to plan and escape and do it in a way where they didn't have to be taken like I did. I was giving them information, I was giving them care, and they were giving me bullshit, bags of it. And so the delusion, I had to recognize like where I was deluding myself, and that's where spirituality comes in. And there's a lot of fucking bullshit in there where it just really gets you stuck, and you're just like, what the fuck? And it's just like you just want to believe because you just need easy at the time because of what you've been through has been so hard and harsh in life. And that's why I really focus on having a soft blanket, soft environment. That's why I really want my home to be soft, because I'm still recovering from this. And these people aren't just going to disappear. You know, they're not gone. These ones that I put boundaries up are gone. I don't deal with them. I don't tolerate them. But like, there's always going to be people like this. You know, I don't know. I can't see where a world where there's not people like this. I mean, I wish, but a wish is just a wish. It's not reality, right? And that's what I had to start recognizing. I had to recognize like while I'm doing what I'm doing, I still like. The spiritual community wants you to believe that you're different, that you're doing something different somehow, that you're gonna like you're being protected by God and you're a chosen one. And I'm like, I don't believe that. I just believe that I chose to do better. I chose to understand that I am not perfect. I am like godly in the way that like we're on this planet and there's so many amazing things and divine things happening on this planet, but like God is in me. We're co-creating together. That's how I believe God. And I use God because that's how everyone else understands the name. It could be a different name. I don't know. Like whoever made this shit up, like how many decades, and I don't even know, like back in the day of Christ, like look how women were treated then. You think that this is a benefit to all humankind? No, it was someone who had a huge ego, pride, and wanted to control other people. He was a greedy man that wrote the Bible and interwoven some wonderful things that sound wonderful. And those are wonderful lessons, but you don't need the Bible to learn those lessons. You know, you can get those outside of the Bible. There's a lot of control and coercion, which is how manipulation shows up with a friendly face and things that sound true, that sounds helpful. Some of the things in the Bible, that sounds to make sense. But when you look at it and you realize that people that really hold the Bible in high regard and you try to bring in other belief systems, like, no, it's only our way. Now it becomes my way or the highway. And so that's when I started to realize, like, these spiritual practices, from religion to spirituality, are all based in a lot of delusion and safety nets that try to make us feel safe while we're living our life. But in reality, to me, those felt like they kept me stuck in the biggest way, because I'm like thinking like, if I just keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to get to where I need to go and I'm supported. And if I just do this, no, I have to work the hard way around. I have to earn subscribers. I have to, even if there's some people who don't have to make as many videos, and whatever, for whatever reason they get what they get, I have to work for it. I'm never just going to be handed these things. I've never been handed anything. When am I going to be handed something all of a sudden? Like, what sense does that make, right? And so I had to really get good with stuff and understand where, you know, and stop going to these people that I put on pedestals for mentors and start trusting in myself. And that's where I've gone to, is where now I trust my own judgment. And while it's helpful to have people like say things and it'll make me think like, you know what, that's not a bad idea, or I was already leaning towards that, but now that you say it, it's kind of like a double, okay, but like I was going to do it anyways. There's a good chance I was going to do it anyway, so I don't really take that into credit. So yeah, so all these things have kept me stuck. Delusions, screens, oh, sugar, carbs, refined carbs, and caffeine. Caffeine being, I don't feel good enough, I gotta do more. The sugar, it made me feel good when I felt bad. You know, it's like when I overworked and I was in pain, when I, you know, was being discarded time and time again, when I was treated badly from all these people that said they cared for me, that's when the sugar came in. The dairy came in because I see it as like an insulator from the pain. It distanced me from the pain. It made me feel safe in a world that I felt unsafe. And unfortunately, they're like synthetic forms of safety nets. And the delusion, you know, it was really hard. Like when you think you're hitting rock bottom and then you go to the cellar, you realize you can dig down and there is further that you can go. And I don't think people understand. And unfortunately, I think some of the people that have hurt me the most are the most delusional. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I think it may seem like they're winning right now, but I think in the long run, they're going to end up in a spot that's going to be really hard to get out of, because I know it's been challenging for me to dig myself out of my own karma. And I do think of other people too much. That was my crime. That was my karma. It's like I gave to other people for no reason, endlessly, and not ever thinking of myself, because that's how I was raised. Thank you, Dad. That's such a kind thing to put on your kid, right? And it's just because I had to abandon myself in order to appease him. And my kids have had to do that with their father, you know, because he's not here. And so they had to kind of make up for what that would look like to have a father figure. Like I did the best I could to, you know, move back and forth between my masculine and feminine. But I really was in my wounded masculine in a way, because I was trying to do everything all on my own. And that's not meant for one human to do. And my community was toxic. And some of my community was like, oh, community is everything. Well, that's because you need a community to raise your kids, woman. And that's because you rely on everyone else to do your work, woman. And this was a family member of mine who would speak like that. Oh, community, what is this saying about a community? I don't know. But like, she was not part of the community. She just took from the community. So, you know, they're everywhere. And they're everywhere. And when you watch these documentaries, when you see these most manipulative people, it really tells you, like, they can be anywhere. And I'll do a video about my what assumptions I made and where they came from, based on like what experience I've had with people where you don't think it's going to be that person, and that's the person. And so I think that's pretty good what I've gone over for like my substances. And so like, okay, so sorry, no, the root of this, I know it's a long video and I'm doing shorter ones and long ones, so those of you that like, you get a little bit of everything. What I found is like there's something, these things all were happening because I didn't have something in place. I was underdeveloped in areas of life. And so the more like I could develop those areas in my world, like making money, like learning how to actually rest and play, learning how to moderate my workload, learning who to be around and who not to be around, learning boundaries and speaking up and advocating for me and mine. The more I started exercising, you know, understanding like what I need to be successful, discipline and what that means, and not being impulsive, and practicing the pause. All those things, when I started developing those things within me, these things start to fall away, and I find to be less obsessive. And the more I work on my world as well, you stop thinking about the people that hurt you so much. And once I got clear about who they were and who they weren't, it makes it really easy to drop off like that. And now it's just like, you know what, you had your chance, you did what you did, and your time is up. I gave you time. You wasted it. You used it to hurt me instead of help me. And sometimes it wasn't, you know, even if it's not that deep for some people, that's fine. But I'm going to remember, like, if it wasn't that deep for you then, it's not going to be that deep for you when I'm winning either. Like that's just, you know, it doesn't have to be. That's cool. You know, there's sometimes where I don't support people because either I don't know them that well, or, you know, I don't understand the situation. But there's a lot of people where I've talked to and they know I'm struggling and they still don't want to help, you know, share my channel, or they don't ask about it, or they don't care, and that's fine. I realize, you know what, I'm here for a service, not for a friendship. And that's what I mean. Like, I'll remember that. I'll remember that when I get big, because some people, like, you know what, they don't think much of you, but they like taking from you, and that's what my history has been. They don't want to pretend to be friends with you, or it's not even about pretend. They don't want to be seen with you for whatever reason, because you're not living a lifestyle that they believe in, I guess, or whatever. They feel like competitive with you. But you know what? I'm gonna remember that, lady. I'm gonna remember that when I hit my mark, and I start, and I will. It's just a matter of when, not if. This is a matter of when, not if. And so these things, as you start to develop yourself and practice these good habits, and you'll get to a point where, like, it's really hard to make these moves. But when you find out, like, if I don't make these moves, I keep doing this. If I don't stand up for myself, if I don't ask the hard questions, then I'm going to tiptoe around these predators because I think I need something from them, and then they're going to backstab me in the way. And I'm always going to feel unsure, uncertain, and I'm going to feel self-doubt as long as I'm connected to these people in some way. When I can't speak my voice and I can't do what I really want to do, that's the anxiety, and that's the lack of self-confidence, and that is that gets in between your intuition, okay? So that's why we got to work on the emotions. We got to work on these confusions, these anxieties, the ADHDs. They're not what they're telling you they are. I don't believe in there. I think there's just a lot of misdiagnosed cases and the depression. I've done videos on those before, at least for the depression. I haven't really touched on ADHD, and I think I've talked about anxiety before too. But if you want another video on those, let me know, and I'll do like smaller videos on each of those. On how I'm working my way through those things without pills and without people. And yeah, like, so like once you, it's almost like that was like that anxious attachment was like I wasn't sure of myself, but like that's because I was raised to be unsure of myself. That's sad. That's sad. You know, that's your parent. They're meant to want more for you, not to just take from you. And like that's what I felt like with my family members. It's just like really competitive energy, like fighting for the spotlight, like fighting for air. And I just like, it got to a point like I just don't even want to be in the same room anymore. You know, holidays are meant to be fun and joyful, and I just didn't like it anymore. And so now I enjoy it with my family, and we do our own traditions and things like that. And we work, and now we work on not bringing sugar to those events, because we are all acknowledging sugar is harmful. Like, and my kids are at different, levels of working through that. Like, but they're putting in the effort, and I think they're starting to recognize too. Like, if I want to get what I want, and I'm tired already, like I had to do this with kids. They don't even have kids yet, and these people are tired already. These are young kids. So something's going on there. Like, well, I've tried to give them as much information. There's still stuff going on in society too, where it's programming them to believe like this is the best case scenario, and it's like, well, no, you gotta learn to do better for yourself, and what that looks like is working for yourself. That's what I believe. So that's what I'm promoting for people is, it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes I feel like I don't know if I could ever be a boss, like my own boss even. I don't even know how to do it long term yet. So I'm starting here, and then I'll figure it out later on. And yeah, so like develop it within yourself, and these things will, when you recognize the why, like why not? So like if you continue with the sugar, you're going to get diabetes, insulin. That is the hardest place to get out of. Insulin resistance is I've been struggling to get myself back into like normal blood sugars, and I don't have all the receipts from getting tests and things, but I can feel it. I can see it. If I have sugar, I blow up, and I retain water, and I get my period, and it fucks with my hormones. Right? It's not just, you don't have to worry about just like your reproductive hormones. Like there's other hormones that are affected, and so some people think you're premenopausal when in reality like you are insulin resistant, or maybe your cortisol's high and you're just so used to it being so high that you don't even know something's off, right? You know something's off, but you can't prove it, right? It's a gray zone. And so I had to start recognizing, like, I would trial and error. If you've been watching me, you know this from my experiences where, like, I want to have a relationship with dairy, but it's unrequited. You know, this is kind of like these relationships in my life, they're unrequited because they're toxic. I love sugar, but sugar does not love me in a way that is going to benefit my body. Sugar loves to be purchased and consumed, but when it enters the body, it's not going to be, good. Same with, like, some of these refined carbs and things. Like, they just don't work for me. And so it doesn't work for my life. And that's kind of how I looked at the people. And now I'm looking at it as like things in my life. And I'm also looking at different habits I have that I'm also trying to revise to. And it's been a process. It's not happened overnight. It's been years. I'm telling you, years. Now think about this just before we end this video. Like, you want to heal. I want to heal. I know something's off. I know I've had to do work. I know I was connecting with the wrong people. And now I'm learning how to do it the right way and what the wrong way looked like so I can do it right. So understand, like, I have been driven. It was started with my kids, and it's continuing with me and my kids, and just the life that I want, right? So, like, I want to heal. It's taken me years. Can you imagine somebody who doesn't want to heal? So now you have to what? Convince them to change. You know how hard that is? They don't value. They don't see values and morals in the same way you do. They don't work their way in the world like you do. They don't want to. They never had to. They found other ways that seemed to work for them, but not everybody. And so imagine, like, you are just making excuse after excuse. Like, if they're not changing, they don't see an issue with the way the dynamic is working. Okay? And what happens when you remove yourself, now they want to come back to you, but it's only to take more from you. It's not to give anything back in reciprocal manner or to even make up for the shit in the past. Like, remember, they weren't helping you pay your bills. They helped create the depression. They were the abusive partners. And so, like, what happened when you were scared for your bills? Were they helping you? No. Were they bringing you groceries? No. Were they supporting you and saying keep going? Hell no. And if they were doing any of those things, it was to try to get something from you in the beginning. I've never had any of these people come back in an authentic manner and really be remorseful and own up to what they're struggling with. The only time they come back around is when they see that I have something that they may be able to benefit off of, and their situation where they're currently in is not working, and so they have to. These are leapfrogs. They're leaping from. They're kind of like hot potato, you know, or like lava. Like, I can't touch the floor. You know, when you're a little kid, you're like, I can't touch the floor because it's lava. So you got to jump furniture to furniture. That's how these people are, and that's why they keep kind of going back and forth, and they pull people in, and they, you know, even if they've moved it on their own for a little bit. Things get hard, and so even the partner that is on their own, they'll pull that partner back in from their apartment that they were totally fine in, just to bring them back in. And now they didn't want them to be with them. They wanted them because of their money, access to money. I've seen that. That's actually sick, and they try to do it with me too. And so that's not family. So I'm gonna end it there because this is really long. But hopefully this is helpful. If you feel like I missed something or have more questions, put them in the comments and I can talk more onto it. But, like, honestly, the more you start working on yourself and working on your life, these things are gonna be white noise eventually. They do fall away. The obsession, whenever you focus on that person and how they hurt you, I've done videos on how to work through that as well, through the resentment in that. But you need to start focusing on yourself. That is the biggest thing. Is you have been looking at everyone else and caring about everyone else, and nobody gives a shit about you. So you have to do that for you. You can't expect that from anybody else. Honestly, if you look around the world right now, you'll be lucky if you find a person that actually connects with you the way you can connect. So that being said, there are some of us out there. So like and subscribe, because that's the group and community I'm trying to create. So there are people out there like us. Where's they're hiding? I don't know where we're all hiding. I know I'm out and about and walking and exercising now, but honestly, I'm not out. I'm not out because I have work to do right now. So, anyways, hopefully this has been helpful. And there are ways to donate if you want through money. It is, if you're comfortable and capable, they're in the description box. But you can also, I think it's in my portfolio profile section as well. And a like and subscribe goes a long way, and so do comments. So I definitely appreciate that. And like I said, I love hearing if you guys found this helpful. I know it's a longer version, but I am offering short videos too for those of you that prefer shorter videos. So if you want this broken down into a shorter video, I might do that as well. For each individual substance that I dealt with, and like what I learned from it, and what I needed to learn to move away from it. I think I'll do that next. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Thank you for your support, and thank you for those who have subscribed and who have liked and who have commented.